City Council convened at home in the Council Chamber Tuesday, October 11th, 2016 at 6:30 p.m. for the purpose of discussing the matters listed below. Notice this meeting was held on October 4th, 2016 at 2:29 p.m. This meeting is being recorded. Councilor Milo is out of town today, and the only councilor absent. All other councilors present. Council President Turiel is currently presiding. Before we turn to our subject matter for the evening, we had an interesting parliamentary discussion this afternoon brought to us by the Ward 3 councilor about, and apparently for the last roughly 25 years we've been doing it all wrong. So in a committee of the whole meeting, according to our city council rules, the council president will appoint a member to serve as council chairman. By custom, that's always been said council president. That rather than battling back and forth over whether our rule supersedes the way it's done in Cushing's or not, what we will do in this case is go strictly by the order of Cushing's manual, which says that which directs me to appoint a person, and in this case, after some consultation, I am appointing since this is normally an ordinances matter, or zoning is an ordinances matter, I am appointing the Ward 1 councilor, who is the chair of ordinances, licenses, and legals affairs, to assume the chair for this evening. So, without any objection, Councilor McCarthy?
Mr. Chairman, I personally disagree. Councilor Lovely served a number of years ago. We've been doing this since I've been in the City Council for 22 years. That is in fact past practice.
Mm-hmm.
Most unions would accept that it's past practice under wages, hours, and working conditions. So I think it's a mistake.
Well,
This is an interpretation
Yep.
of a council that served back in the 1970s. We're in 2016. We've done different practices. I've come on board and I've served under 3 different city clerks, two different city clerks. You're going on 25 years. I don't think that's written in stone.
Well, you know, Councilor, due to the under the circumstance on this one, this is a case where we want to make absolutely sure that you know, given some of the statements that have been made by parties, that we dot every single I and cross every single T. So I think ultimately I do agree with the point that the councilor made back at the beginning of the year, that many of the rules that we have in our current handbook are antiquated and not actually followed by the body as a whole, but still exist in name only at this point. But in this case, I'm perfectly willing to, you know, to indulge that and go and make sure absolutely that we have everything as precise and legally proper as possible. So
just a point of clarification too. We've had a meeting on rules in the past, and I've seen nothing come out of that subcommittee. Why all of a sudden now do we have to, the chairman of this is out? I can't see that, sincerely.
In fairness, the ad hoc committee that we established at the beginning of this year has not provided us with anything yet. But again, in this case, you know, although I personally think that our historical practice, at least in my 5 years and as far as I've read back, is perfectly adequate, I'm fine with indulging this in the interest of making sure that this is done absolutely above board and on the level. So
I think you're being too kind.
So, Councilor McCarthy?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Read the rules.
We'll come down and take notes now, too. That's my other thing. Also, could I have a pen out of my desk, or could someone hand me a pen? You took yours.
Oh, thank you.
Well, then the matter in front of us is matter number 557, Planning Board's recommendation relative to rezoning 2 parcels of real property situated at 293 and 297 Bridge Street to B4 Business Wholesale Automotive. Let the record reflect that Tom Daniel from the Planning Department, the City Solicitor, and the Mayor are here. If anyone has to ask a question of that. Counselor Epley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move to approve the recommendation from the planning board and refer back to the full committee with a positive recommendation.
Second. Counselor Epley moves to send the matter to the full council with a positive recommendation. Seconded by Counselor Turiel. Under discussion. Counselor Lovely.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, through you, I ask to suspend the rules to allow all those folks who have come to the meeting this evening to be able to express their views. I understand and I have read the opinion of the city solicitor, but our rules allow us to suspend the rules. I suspect there'll be an objection, but I want it noted that I have asked that the rules be suspended to allow individuals, both the administration as well as the people who are here this evening, who has followed this for 9-10 months now, be allowed to speak.
Second. Object.
Objection by Counselor Epley. For the record, this meeting is a continuation of a process. The process would be relative to the rezoning of a parcel, at which this is the second time we met on the issue was relative to the rezoning to B4 specifically. At that point, there was a joint public hearing convened, of which the planning board and their members sat in this chamber with the city council, and there was a posted meeting, which everyone was notified. It was in the paper twice, which is follows, as Councilor Lovely so noted, it followed the procedure with regards to zoning, at which time the public hearing on the matter was closed. The matter was sent to the planning board for their deliberation. The planning board deliberated. Their recommendations have come back to us on our desk. And at this point, the committee is charged with either accepting these recommendations or not accepting these recommendations, or making no recommendation and sending the matter to the full council for their consideration on the matter. It is a unique situation in which I understand and I respect Councilor Lovely's wish to open it up to the public, but this is a unique matter, and I'm sure there'll be lots of debate on this. It's a unique matter, but the matter is clearly set, and in order to open it back up, you'd have to be able to open it back up to everybody, and everybody who was originally here isn't here. So everyone who originally wanted to speak on the matter had that opportunity. So at this point, I can see that Councilor Lovely wants to say something, so I'll recognize Councilor Lovely.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to point out that at our meetings, under the rules, we are allowed to suspend the rules to allow people to address us. And we have had an objection to that. I want the people here to know that motion's been made. There is some support on the council. However, it only takes one objection to keep anybody from speaking to, whether it's a city council meeting, it's a subcommittee meeting, there has to be suspension of the rules. And when we're in our subcommittees, generally, it's more or less informal. That's not asked for. However, it should be asked for, but it's not. But I have made the motion because I feel that many of you have a lot to say that wouldn't be repetitive, and I just feel that you're all friends, neighbors, and citizens, that you should have the opportunity to speak. And it's not a public hearing. However, at our meetings, we are allowed to, by unanimous consent, allow people to address the council on any issue. So I have made that motion. It's been objected to, and it's not a public hearing. It is within our rules to allow the public to speak if the council so wishes. Apparently, this council, at least one member, does not want to hear from you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Fury.
I respect the chairman's judgment in that part, too, and your judgment also.
I'm just following the rules.
I agree, and I respect that.
Thank you.
Well done. I have to highly respect and recognize the role and responsibility of FW Webb has done in the last 10 agonizing months of emotional public hearings. Webb has been very compassionate, conciliatory, and compromising to a very historical neighborhood and to our own city of Salem. Most of us in this chamber have the common goal that we want to promote well-established businesses like FW Webb, and at the same time pioneer new businesses throughout the city of Salem. FW Webb is a vital and intricate part of the city of Salem. Most of us are on common ground with FW Webb that we wanted to stay in Salem, here in Salem, and not move elsewhere, which is a serious possibility. We have heard statements in the past here in this chamber. We're almost there. Give us a little more time. We're at the 10-yard line. We're at the 1-yard line. Sometimes I wonder who we are cheering for, Salem or self-interest. We have to come to a common reality that no matter what we do in this chamber to seek common goals and common ground, we are not going to please some in this room. For some, it is their way or the door, and a possible appeals to delay it further in the courts, and possibly drive FW Webb out of the city of Salem for good. We in this chamber must take the high road. Keep FW Webb in Salem. We need to send a strong message to Salem. For FW Webb has been a vital part of the past, our exciting present, and our vibrant future. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Nothing there. Other comments? It'll be a fast meeting. I would speak.
Council Sergeant.
I wish we'd allow the public to speak also, but that didn't happen. Almost every zoning change I've been involved with came back to the city council, came back to committee of the whole, and the public was allowed to speak. This is the first one that we haven't allowed that, and I think that's a shame, especially when we're always talking about transparency and allowing people input. I think it kind of flies in the face of democracy. But I think that's unusual to do that. Also, with new information in from the planning board, there's going to be some questions naturally about that, and people would like to ask them. And I think it's always best when we don't hear those questions or have comment in a private room, that we have it in public where you get to hear each other's questions. All 11 of us get to hear those questions and hear the answers to them. I think it makes for a much better process. With that being said, I stand strong against the zoning change, and nothing to do with Webb. I think Webb can accomplish what they need to accomplish without a zoning change and without selling all of that parking lot to them. And I think zoning's what gives people's property value. And if anybody's got a mortgage, they understand that. If anybody's ever had to save money for a down payment, give it to the bank, sign a paper that says you're gonna pay a mortgage for 30 years, pay back 3 times what you borrowed, and then agree to pay taxes for the rest of your life, even after you retire, till the day you die. I think that's a pretty good commitment. And I stand strong with the commitment that the neighborhood people all over the city make to the neighborhoods of Salem. That's what makes us strong. And I will tell you, we want to keep a business in Salem. But I say the strongest business we have in the city is to combine residential property owners, taxpayers, et cetera. Because they are really paying the business taxes. And they pay their taxes first. They pay their state, federal, Social Security, FICA, all those taxes first, and then they're good enough to go to some person's business and plop down their money so that that person can make money and pay their taxes to the city also. That's why it's justifiable that the commercial taxes are a little bit higher than the residential taxes, because indirectly the residential people are really paying them. So we can't give Webb value without taking value away from the neighborhood, right? There's no two ways about it. When Webb gets what they want, every property in that neighborhood loses a little bit of what they have, and I don't think that's fair. And I agree with the planning board. The planning board we had 50 years ago, 60 years ago, that changed zoning, that saw that Salem was expanding, that saw that factories were gonna be leaving eventually. Otherwise, we'd still have Salem and Peabody be full of leather factories. We've been evolving. We don't have a coal pile at Picker and Wharf or oil tanks there anymore. We have a vibrant Picker and Wharf because of those past planning boards and what they did. And I feel like I'm a pretty good student of history, and I like to see what happened in the past to help us move forward from that foundation that was put there. And I really believe those people weren't necessarily, they were concerned about what they did want on this property, but also what they didn't want going forward. They saw a commercial use there already. They changed it to a non-commercial use because they didn't want a commercial use there going forward. They understood the value of the neighborhood and the history and how important it was to Salem and its tourists. And a lot of places have moved up and away from downtown. Salem Glass, Thermal Circuits, up to the Swampscott Industrial Park. Those same planning boards and city council 50 years ago did that. And I really think that we're disrespecting their work, some years ago to plan for a future of this city, and we're taking a step backwards and hurting the neighborhood at the same time. I think we can help Webb without doing this, and I stand strongly against the zoning change. Thank you.
Council Turtle, then Council Famiga.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, the zoning is a topic that's difficult around the city, and we spoke just moments ago about some of the businesses that expanded by moving out to the industrial park areas off Swampscott Road, Salem Glass being an example. Salem Glass wound up keeping, when they moved, they did not their property was already commercially zoned, but they did not rezone the building and redevelop it for something else. They turned it into more industrial use that, right now that is 2 automotive shops, a daycare center, and a distillery occupying that building. It's been reused, it's still serving commercial and industrial purposes. And in fact, one of the auto businesses that did move in there has been quite a problem within that neighborhood that we've been trying to work on dealing with. Everything that we do as a body, everything that we do as a city when it comes to zoning has consequences, and it has consequences up and down in all ways. Looking at this, we have a business that was established on that site back when the zoning for that area was industrial. While the business was still doing business there, the NRCC district was created, affecting one parcel, and the former Universal Steel parcel was rezoned residential right underneath that. It was done in an era when I suspect people weren't nearly as aware of what kind of contaminants lay in the ground as they are today, because we didn't know that things like PCBs were so horrible back in the 60s. Back then they were wonder chemicals. So we created residential zoning there, likely not having been alive in 1965 when I believe this change was made. They created that zoning with the whole figuring that when they went, this could be some sort of multifamily housing. Well, obviously, learning what we've learned, it can't be. And maybe at the end of this 50-year deed restriction that's proposed to be placed into effect, maybe by the end of that time, the technology will be there to make these sort of problems go away magically. I don't know, but I think we'll be better at dealing with these issues then than we are today. And today, we're better at acknowledging and dealing with these issues than we were 50 years ago. So I think within this, the recommendations that we've got back from the planning board, the protections that they wish to put into place, the design restrictions, the design requests that they want to put in place, the restrictions on use that they want to put into place, and the restrictions on resale that they wish to put in place. I think these are all very reasonable protections to put into place to allow an established Salem business to expand and modernize and be able to suit the changing times in a site that previously was pretty much a stew of toxic waste. I do support this. The original proposal that came before us, I supported many of the steps that we needed to take to make it happen, but I did not support that previous plan. I thought the building was too large. I thought the design was too obtrusive. I thought there were a lot of issues with that, and I thought it had too much impact. And I think to their credit that the applicant went back to the drawing board, revisited their plans, came up with an acceptable compromise, and has shown a real desire to work with the city to make this happen in a way that suits pretty much everybody. promotes a business expansion in this city. It promotes the ability to continue serving their customers and keep a tax-paying business in this city. It takes away the danger to the neighbors that was there, that was present when we were talking about piercing many columns through through the cap that was in place. And it gets us to a point where I think that we all will be able to work forward ultimately. So I do support moving forward with this. I do think we need to discuss the deed restriction, in its details and, and pass that around to work with. And I do like the fact that the planning board wants the DRB to be part of the process, but I do favor moving ahead.
Thank you, Council Flamico.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, I can still ask questions of the city solicitor, correct?
Sure can.
Through you to the city solicitor. I have two things for either you or the director of planning.
Should be a suspension of the rules.
The first is for the DRB, how can we ensure that requirement? Would it be through the sale agreement or through our actual recommendation?
It could be through sale agreement and restriction.
Mr. Chairman.
And
Go ahead.
the second,
Suspension.
so do we need a suspension of the rules too?
I think so. I move suspension of the rules.
Council Lovely moves suspension of the rules. Seeing no objection.
Thank
All
you,
right,
Mr.
the
Chairman.
second is for the use of the proposal in B4. I know we had a little bit of discussion when we received a letter that all the councilors got as far as the table and the uses allowed within B4. Could you just elaborate on that one more time, please?
So, what we got from Tom St. Pierre?
Yes.
So, Tom St. Pierre, gave you a legal opinion that basically said that he had determined as a zoning officer, he's the one who is with the zoning officer and make a determination. He says, I'll just summarize it for you, that he reviewed the request, and he determined that the mixed retail use for wholesale and business, where the wholesale exceeds 50% is allowed in B4. What happened is when they took the narrative and translated it into a table, you, in B4, were allowed to have, by right, both the wholesale, 100%, and the retail, 100%. The restriction was for B5, where you wouldn't want to have a predominantly wholesale business in your downtown district. So his opinion was that when you converted this to the table, that should have been maybe a dash, but not prohibition.
Thank you. Two more things, Mr. Chair. Next thing I'd like to say, I was initially not in favor of what we had seen. I brought that up and told people this. I didn't like the project as we had back several months ago when we started all this. But now I feel like we got through a lot of these concerns. Now we're looking at the deed restrictions. That's not disturbing the cap. We're preserving the public way, and then the third final part was the design review board review, which I think should have been part of this a long time ago. I will be okay with moving forward with this now, but I do have a motion I'd like to add, and just, Mr. Chair, I don't know if I should do that motion now or later on. And I'd like to make a motion that the mayor and administration submit the sale of the Universal Steel lot to the City Council for final approval, and that the mayor and administration provide the City Council with a copy of any proposed deed or use restrictions related to the Universal Steel site in the adjacent FW Web parcel as soon as possible.
If I may suggest, I would suggest you bring that in and tell them at the council meeting on Thursday as an order.
Sure.
That would- we can, because what's gonna happen is we're gonna take up this matter, and we're either gonna vote to keep it in committee, send it, the motion on the floor is to send it with a positive recommendation. That's the will of the body. The deed restriction is a suggestion from the planning board, which is totally independent of zoning.
Right.
So therefore, any conversation about deed restriction, if you wanna have
Put it in as a late file.
you wanna bring it in as a late file, put it in, refer to, and then have the whole matter referred to committee, so therefore, when the mayor or the administration or the city solicitor has the language, then it can come back to the specific committee and the city council that you refer to, and then they can have a meeting, at which point, anybody can speak at that point.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. Further questions, discussion, Council Dillon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I understand that process correctly, tonight we refer the matter to I believe, Thursday's meeting where the city council proper will take a vote on this measure. Is that correct?
That if we haven't taken the vote yet, but if the vote is to refer the matter with a favorable recommendation or a negative recommendation, or if it fails with a negative recommendation, whatever, it'll be taken up on Thursday. That is correct.
Thank you. And on Thursday, Mr. Chair, the public will not be allowed to speak unless they speak before the meeting. Is that correct? And they sign up in advance.
Yes.
It's not a public hearing, continuation of all.
There is, the public hearing on the matter has been closed.
Right.
But the city council, in its infinite wisdom, years ago, when I was first on the city council, decided to, and Councilor Sargent was there and Councilor Fury was there, well before anyone else in the room, he predates actually, and it came after Councilor Lovely, is the fact that the public, in a city council meeting, the public is invited to, anyone can come and attend a city council meeting if they want to. But there was never an opportunity for the public to speak. So the city council crafted language, probably about 7 years ago, to address that issue, so it allows the public to speak on a matter that's on the agenda. This matter will be on the agenda, so therefore, during the public comment period, if someone wants to have a comment, and make an additional comment, because they feel that there's something additional that hasn't been heard, or that they have something more they want to say on the matter, they will be allowed. That was set up, like, I want to say 7 years ago.
Yeah, we're in agreement, Mr. Chair. It's just my understanding that bigger conversations don't take place in city council meetings, and those are done here in committee meetings. It's the reason why we have committee meetings. I'd like to just say that I think the neighbors in general, actually, the neighbors in whole, have done a wonderful job presenting a vast amount of information, and they're the reason, the majority reason why we're having a better project happening on the web project. The box store that we looked at on the Universal lot is gone. The digging up the soils in a high rate is no longer on the table. There's a little bit of digging in the soils at the staircase and loading ramp, fence post, that type of thing. I think if it's done right and taken off-site, there'll be no issue environmental-wise there. So that's a good thing. The right-of-way is protected and it's in place. We don't have to give out a tax break through the TIF program, which is a good thing. And I believe we don't have to pay back the $500,000 if the wording gets creative and we actually transfer the property in September or whatever the date is in 2017, which we're getting close to now. The B4 area is, back to my school days and back to working in the planning department for 14 years, it's my opinion that that's the only zoning district that the wholesale and warehouse use is allowed, and that's exactly what Webb does. So that's the B4 makes sense to me. It made sense when we were doing the Universal and the Alpha property B4, and then the shell game switched to the building going on the other side. It makes sense for me today to do the same thing for not the other two properties, but Universal and the Webb parcel. I do have an issue with the last thing that I've asked for all the way along the whole process is to have Webb go before the design review board. I'm going to ask that be part of our decision here tonight or on Thursday. And if not, I think I'm going to need to vote against something that I want to see happen. So if the B4 goes forward, I'm okay with that as long as it's attached to a design review board so we have a good design building as part of this whole project. Lastly, what I started with is public comment at a committee meeting. I think it's important. If somebody has something to say, we should say it here because we can't say it on Thursday. So I'd like to ask the good Ward 4 counselor if he would entertain withdrawing his objection that would not allow, to allow the public to speak tonight. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I, just being put into this position 20 minutes ago, I don't have the answer to your question, so I'm gonna ask for where we had originally suspended the rules with regards to the city solicitor allowing to speak. Beth, Councilor Dibble brings up the issue of the recommendation and the 3 bullet points that came back from the planning board, one of them which is DRB. At what point or how do we attach that to the zoning? Do we do it now, or would it be done now, or would it be done on Thursday?
With zoning, we do it with a condition of sale.
So that would be part of the sale, as opposed to zoning. Because zoning is independent of conditions at that point?
Yes.
So the condition of DRB would go with what Councilor Fumiko had referred to earlier, so the bullet points. So I would suggest that, Councilor Dibble, that you and Councilor Fumiko bring in a joint order or somehow piggyback each other, so that when the matter of the sale of the property comes back to the city council, that both matters are addressed in that venue. Fair enough?
Thank you.
Welcome. Further discussion? Councilor Gerard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm very much so in favor of this. I like the planning board's recommendation. I think they're a body that really thinks through their decisions. They're very methodical about it. They're very thoughtful. They're very intelligent. And, you know, it was Walter Power years ago that had said, you know, the job of a planning board is that they plan. And so they're looking at this not just in terms of the impact on the neighborhood, but they're also looking at this in terms of the impact on the city. And I think that that's important to remember what our jobs and our roles are here as city councilors, that it's important to think about how this is going to impact the neighborhood, but also how this impacts the city, and where this is no longer going to be industrially used as it was with Universal Steel, where this is fitting in with the business wholesale requirement for the B4. This fits with what should go there and what belongs there, and this will be ultimately better for the city. This will be better for everyone. And I don't know, I think it's time to move forward. I think we've talked this over and over and over again, and it's time to move forward. Thank you.
For discussion?
I would, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Council Sugg.
You know, I do have a lot of respect for the planning board, past and present, but if you read the comments from the planning board, they have a lot of questions of themselves. This doesn't seem like a slam dunk decision based on the comments of any one of the members. They have a lot of questions themselves. And, you know, we're not just changing zoning, we're changing the quality of life in that neighborhood. And there's not one of us sitting here that I believe would want to change from what's there now to what's going to be there a couple of years from now. And I don't think we have any idea what's going to go on there. And it's going to be a legitimate business, of course, and a good business. But when the dumpster truck comes at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning and lifts a so many ton dumpster up 20 feet and drops it 10 feet, you're going to have people get woken up out of a sound sleep. When the deliveries come later at night, when there's all kinds of different street sweepers come at different time at night, and they'll say, well, we have to do that because we need the place empty. There's so many things that happen with the business coming in here. When pipes, not necessarily on purpose, get delivered, that you're clanging metal around. All those kind of different things are going to happen with quality of life. It's going to be very difficult some days when a butter decides to have a cookout and have family over, or have some kind of family event, wedding, christening, whatever. Because they're not going to be able to call Webb and say, hey, it's Saturday, we're having people over, to stop doing your business. And you're going to be having something in your backyard, and here's going to come an 18-wheeler right up in there and start unloading for an hour or so, and it's going to change the way things happen. And all those different things you can't foresee happening there are going to change the quality of life of that neighborhood. And it's really easy to vote on it when you live a half mile, a mile away. But if you lived 100 feet away, I think you'd have a little different, a little more empathy for the neighborhood people. They're not here to obstruct anything. They're here to try to protect their own quality of life, trying to protect the investment they bought into, and they bought in based on the rules. And we're changing the rules on them. We're changing their quality of life, and we're changing their investment on them. And in some cases, we're changing whether or not they decide to stay living here in Salem. And we need to keep our businesses in Salem, but we need to keep our people here just as well. So, thank you.
Councilor Gerard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I couldn't disagree more. You know,
I know, personally, I know.
Because the reality is that when people bought in the neighborhood, that there was an industrial use there then. And, you know, my mother's a realtor, and, you know, the two adages that she lives by is location, 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 and a house is worth what someone will pay for it. And the reality is that when we look at, if we look at a transcript of what people discuss in meetings, and exactly what Councilor Dibble was pointing out is that people should be asking questions. And so we shouldn't fault people on the planning board for asking questions and taking things into consideration. It's how they ultimately make their votes, just as how we ultimately take our votes. And that's what matters.
Mr. Chair, not to rebut, and I don't mean to be disrespectful, but I've learned a long time ago that real estate value isn't just location, location, location. It's location and the zoning around that location. And these people
That's
bought their
location.
house with that zoning that's in place, knowing they'd have a better future eventually. And we're reversing that on them. They knew that when Universal Steel went away, that something better would go there or nothing would go there. And we're reversing that on them. We're taking a step backwards. From what they have now is better than Universal Steel, is it not? Is what they have now not better than Universal Steel? How can we argue that? There's not the kind of activity there was when Universal Steel was there. So we're reversing that to make more commercial activity there in an R2 zone. So it's not the fact that, again, going forward, the planning board's looking forward, saw what they wanted somewhere and what they didn't want somewhere. And you think the R2 zone there is because of the butts in R2 neighborhood. They changed zoning the way we're supposed to. It's supposed to be in fitting with the surrounding zoning. So they changed it to R2 in much part because there was R2 touching it, so. Sorry, thank you.
It's fine. Council Toro.
I would just note to this that much as, in fact, both my colleagues just spoke of, until a few years ago, Universal Steel was there. And that wasn't just an eyesore in the neighborhood, that was an imminent hazard in the neighborhood that required a very expensive cleanup process in order to remediate it and make the site safe. Right now, the site is being used as a parking lot. When this entire process is complete, should this go forward, should the whole, should the zoning go past, should the project make it through planning and all the like, what will be in use there is still fundamentally a parking lot with pipe storage in the back and access. So instead of people parking there to walk into town during Halloween or walk to the train, they're going to be walking into the adjacent building. And where all the locus of activity and all the locus of construction is moved to the other side of the building, away from virtually all of the residential neighborhood. So, you know, I think this is a case where the proposed zoning and the proposed plan does overall make things better. But again, going back in history on this, and it predating my own time on the planet, let alone my time in government, this is a business that predates by a long time the zoning in that site. They went from industrial zoning to R2 and then later NRCC zoning. I'm not sure what the zoning was on the actual website right now during the time before it became NRCC. But those are properties where the use long time predates the zoning that's in place. The zoning change to R2 for the Universal Steel site was made back in the day before we knew PCBs and most contaminants were a bad thing. And we have since learned in the ensuing decades that not only is it a bad thing, but it's a horrible thing. And that's why the owner of that site simply walked away and padlocked it and gave it up for tax, for a tax title, and put it into the city's hands in the first place and dumped the problem on us. We were fortunate to be able to work with the state and federal governments in order to get the site cleaned up to an acceptable level for what its current use is. And yeah, now we're looking at a plan that preserves that use and it satisfies the issues that were brought forward. I completely also agree with the fact that with the need to make sure that the appropriate restrictions and the demand that this go through design review process be recorded into the deed and be part of the bill of sale for this property. I think on a purely technical level, this now works appropriately. But it also has to be a building and has to be a design that is appropriate to what is there, is appropriate to what the neighborhood reflects. And even though Bridge Street itself is very much a mixed-use corridor, there's a few houses, there's a couple of industrial businesses, auto businesses, there will be ultimately, the Gateway Center with the housing there, and the senior center is part of it. There's the parking lot of a church, going all the way down through through Bridge Street. It is a mixed-use corridor. I think a mixed-use corridor is something that, it buffers to the adjacent residential neighborhood that's a very historic neighborhood. But in a small city like Salem, mixed use is pretty much what we have in most areas. We have businesses next to houses. Knowing where many of our various members live, I know the Ward 4 counselor, just to use an example, lives directly across the street in a historic home, one of the oldest homes in Salem, that was restored lovingly, and with condos right behind it, an industrial lot across the street, and a couple of redevelopment projects going on old industrial sites. The Walgreens site was done almost right next door to him. There's a site going up now in Blubber Hollow, and the Gateway Center is there. I live on a corner where, in a residential zone and in an actual historic district, where I'm surrounded by condo buildings, apartments, multifamilies. I'm the only single-family home within several of mine, and we have businesses across the street, and offices and all. And we have a dental office. We have many other things right in that neighborhood. We have those kind of issues and conflicts all around. The Ward 3 counselor lives right by a church. The Ward 2 counselor lives in the middle of downtown, literally. And so all these different people, we all live in a city that's this small and has this kind of conflict and has these kind of mixed uses, and I think overall it makes us better as a city.
Council Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This thing's been going on for a while, and the first time it came around, there was a lot of things that they were looking for us to do, and I just wasn't able to support that. FW Web, being a good neighbor, good business, they've been around for a long time, they've been in that area for over 50 years, went back and eliminated almost all of them, coming back to, they didn't have to dig. We get Beckford Way, we don't need to give a TIF. And I've gotten emails and stuff about different other ways we could do it, as far as like keeping it in the NRCC and changing it to allow use. And we've done that before with the PUD and the business park development, which was specifically for a certain project at Lowe's, but it affected other projects. So this is kind of reverse, where we want to keep FW Web there. And I'm in favor for it, because they've done a lot to take a lot of issues off the table. This one, zoning, it's tough, like Council Sargent says, you change quality of life, but they've been there for over 50 years. It's gonna be a bigger business. The problem is what's gonna happen if they ever leave, and that's where the issue comes into play. But as far as like all the work that we've done on this, and FW Web willing to stay with it, I'm willing to move the project forward, at least at the next level. But I have a point of clarification. Now, when it goes, we pass the zoning, and then when the mayor, the whole sale, it's gonna come back to us anyway. Doesn't it come back anyway? I mean, you don't really have to bring that in, except to add on the design review.
It doesn't come back to us right now.
The sale, a purchase sale does not come back for our approval? I believe it does.
Not if it's
Can
an
I, through
auction.
you, can suspend the rules to ask the mayor what the process, or the city solicitor?
The mayor's committed to following the ordinance, which requires that it comes back. Even though the statute for tax title property does not require that, we're gonna be following the process that's in the ordinance.
Okay. And that just makes sure that it's gonna happen, okay. All right, I don't have any problem.
Any discussion?
Move the question.
The matter in front of us is, where'd it go? There it is. Council Upton moves to send the matter to the full city council with a positive recommendation, seconded by Council Terrell. Okay. Huh?
Did you say Council Lovely?
Did I say that? I said Council Upton.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure, it's in my notes.
All right, that's okay, that's fine.
I got drafted to this job.
Doing a wonderful job.
Council Eppley moves to send the motion on the floor is Council Eppley moves to send the matter to the full council with a positive recommendation, seconded by Council Terrell. This is specifically with regards to the zoning. Just for clarification, the bullet points that came back from the planning board, we're gonna address in a late file for the meeting on Thursday, of which, at that point, the sale, when it comes back to us, will also include the language for the 50-year deed restriction, as well as the DRB recommendation that this project have DRB scrutiny or oversight, I guess is the proper word. I just want to also speak to the process. I want to thank everybody. It's been a long process. I didn't expect to be sitting here tonight, and when I got out of the shower this evening before I put my jacket on, I got the phone call that said that we're going to be invoking a rule. I was like, okay. I apologize if I'm not quite as prepared as I usually am, but I think we move this forward in the proper fashion. I also just want to let the public know that this isn't over with respects to some of your concerns. I realize zoning is a big concern, and the public hearing on that had been closed, and we're moving forward with that this evening, and then we'll take it up on the full council on Thursday. But with regards to some of the other issues that the planning board had put in front of us for our consideration, with regards to what we just talked about, the deed restrictions and whatnot, that's gonna come back to us. So there will be more opportunities to weigh in. So at this point, seeing no further discussion,
You can request a roll call vote, please?
it doesn't require a roll call vote, but if you sent, there's 3 hands that want to see a roll call vote. 3 hands. Now I have to go find a piece of paper.
Mr. Chair, if I may?
Yep.
Thank you. I had my hand up when you asked if there were any more questions.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Councilor Dibble.
Yeah, just want to point out, in your comment to change one word that you suggested on the Design Review Board, you said that it was a recommendation, and it should be a requirement, not a recommendation, please.
That'll be addressed in the order, Counselor.
Understand?
No, I said that, if I may clarify, I stated that the planning board recommended that the city council, in its wisdom, can choose to make that a requirement, but that's our decision to do it.
Thank you. Just want to clarify that.
That's fine. I cannot find a sheet, so we go in
Want to
front
check
of
and
it
see if
backwards?
there's one up?
Yeah, do you have one?
I'll check.
Just indulge me for 1 second. We're going forwards? Even if you have an old one.
No, we don't have any of them up here either.
No, it's not the paper. I have to call them in order by alphabetical, frontwards, backwards, and
Counselor
there's
Dibble.
usually sheets.
Dibble, Epley, Fury,
I'm gonna write it down.
Gerard.
Mr. Chair,
Oh, Fumiko.
I think that in terms of the alpha order, we're used to the thing, so maybe we each identify ourselves and say aye, yea, or nay.
That's, what was the origin? Dibble?
Okay.
I have the
Dibble, Epley, Fumiko, Fury, Gerard,
Milo.
then Lovely,
Ryan, sorry.
Ryan, Sargent.
Lovely McCarthy, thank you.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you. That's right.
You are lovely.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. After McCarthy is
Ryan.
Miles, she's not here. Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
Ryan Sargent Turhill.
Mm-hmm.
At 12 yet?
I apologize, I just wasn't ready. 1, 2.
Unlucky.
Who am I missing?
Elaine.
Lane, who's not
No, I
here.
put Milo in there because I have to mark her as absent.
Mhm.
Dibble, Epley, Fury, Fumiko.
Fumiko.
Epley, Fumiko. Sorry. I apologize. So a yay would be to send it to the full council with a positive recommendation, a nay be, not to send it to the full council at this point, because the direction was to send it to the full council with a positive recommendation. So if you wish not to send it, or you're voting against the recommendation, then a nay vote. Everyone understand? Council Dibble,
Yes.
Counselor Epley,
Yes.
Counselor Famico,
Yes.
Counselor Fury,
Yes.
Counselor Gerard,
Yes.
Counselor Lovely,
No.
Counselor McCarthy, yes. Counselor Milo is absent. Counselor Ryan,
Yes.
Counselor Sergeant,
No.
Counselor Turiel.
Yes.
On the matter of sending the number 557 to the full city council for their consideration, we have 10 members voting, 8 in the affirmative, 2 in the negative, 1 absent. The matter carries. Or the matter's, I shouldn't say that, the matter's being sent to the full council. Counselor Turiel.
Move to adjourn.
Counselor Turiel moves to adjourn. All those in favor, all those opposed? Thank you. We stand adjourned.